All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for INRC's platform called Info Sessions. My name is Terry Brooks Allen. I am the training manager at INRC, and I'm joined by Danae Freeman, our engagement manager at INRC.
Hi,
And Danae
everybody.
will, thank you, Danae. She will be assisting me this evening with trying to monitor the room. She'll be checking the chat. So if you have any questions that you don't want to speak on, you can actually put them in chat and we will try to get those answers for you. And Danae will also just be monitoring the room in other ways. So tonight, we are very happy to have Laura Giffel with us from Fletcher District Association. I'm trying to move my screen over. So Laura has been a neighborhood cheerleader since moving to the Bates Hendricks neighborhood in 2014. She has served as a board member and president of her neighborhood association, in addition to opening the first dog park in downtown Indy in 2020. Currently serving as the district manager for the Fletcher District, she has the pleasure of advocating for those who live, work, and play in Fountain Square and Fletcher Place. Laura is also a licensed therapist and spent 10 years providing support to families impacted by developmental delays. Laura, thank you again for joining us, partnering with us with INRC, and for sharing your gifts with the neighborhoods of Indianapolis. Getting funds to implement projects and ideas, we all know that can be challenging. So we will definitely appreciate all the information that you share with us this evening. Laura, welcome.
Hello, everybody. So I am so excited to share with you what one of my biggest passions are, which is neighborhood-based fundraising. In addition to that, how do we build partnerships within the assets that are already within our community to help meet all of our common goals? So although we're talking primarily about fundraising tonight, we're going to build this around the framework of building partnerships within your communities. That might mean getting money. It might mean someone's time. It might mean someone's talent. So we're going to talk a little bit about how do you build these partnerships to be able to meet your common goals. So as we're moving forward here, just a little bit about my organization that I work with. So as Trey mentioned, I am currently the district manager, which is a funky way to say executive director for the Fountain Fletcher District here in Fountain Square and Fletcher Place. So we are a 501c3. So we're a tax-exempt charity that works to increase the quality of life and bolster small businesses within our neighborhood. Fountain Fletcher District works with local organizations, historians, and outreach agencies to preserve the history and culture of our historic district. So we don't necessarily act in the same way as a neighborhood association does, in the sense that we also represent businesses in the cultural district as a whole, but we do partner with our neighborhood associations. And a lot of my experience comes from a neighborhood association. I'm just very lucky that in my current role, I get the honor of being a paid neighborhood cheerleader, which I know doesn't happen very often. But a lot of my experience does come from working at the neighborhood level without paid staff, without maybe that 501c3 status, where you're doing things from the super grassroots level. So again, just a little bit about me. I moved to downtown Indianapolis in 2014 and immediately joined the Bates Hendricks Neighborhood Board, looking for houses. The Bates Hendricks Neighborhood Association really pulled me in immediately, and I knew this is where I wanted to live. And it didn't take them long to say that I should probably be their president. I feel like I maybe drew the short straw, but it was a wonderful experience for me for the 3.5 years I got to do that, and I'm so thankful for the experience there. Also, as Terry mentioned, I am the past executive director and one of the co-founders of Indy Dog Park. So we were the first downtown dog park in the city of Indianapolis. We saw a need and found, again, another partnership to make that happen. And then I am still a licensed mental health counselor and behavior analyst, kind of put that on pause to take a break post-COVID. But that's what my clinical and experience background comes from. So I like to say sometimes I'm a professional listener in a lot of ways. And I'm really passionate about helping neighborhoods be successful and also creative and unique places to explore within our city. So picture I included here is just one of my favorites that a neighbor snapped of me. So this is at Bauman Park, which is one of my fundraising projects that we'll talk about. And we did a large crowdfunding campaign to rebuild the playground. You can kind of see in the background of this picture. And part of that was me being very particular about the money. They were going to charge us $1,500 of our fundraising budget to spread this mulch. And I said, oh, I've spread mulch so many days in my life. We can spread this mulch. We can get volunteers to do this. Well, what I didn't really realize is that this was 110 yards of mulch, which again, me had no idea what that meant. If you guys know what that means, you're like, you're insane. That was 2 semi-trucks load full of mulch that we spread on. This was actually on my 30th birthday. So this was the day COVID started. We got a good group of volunteers through our community partnerships to spread 2 semi-truck trailers full of mulch at Bauman Park to save us $1,500 that we were then able to take that $1,500 and put it towards additional programming and some additional swings and things like that in the park. So this is one of my favorite pictures. You can kind of see the person next to us. This was like a 7-foot, 8-foot tall pile of mulch, and it was insane to spread. But it was one of my favorite community projects we got to do. And just in general, one of my favorite things to share about the power of community and partnerships. So what I want to show you here, this is not meant to be a braggy example of things I've done, but I think it helps put into perspective when I'm sharing some of this information, where it comes from and what my experience is in doing fundraising. When I was first meeting with some folks to help me understand how do we do larger scale fundraising for our organization outside of just like, charging dues for memberships or one-off donations, neighborhood associations, a lot of the times we either don't charge for membership or have recurring revenue, or if we do, it's at $5 to $10 as people join, but it's not really enough to be able to do a significant project based off of just those small donations. So I was meeting with some folks, and the people I was meeting with were saying, well, how much do you think you're going to have to raise? And I would tell them, oh, I think to build this playground, for example, I think we like maybe $20,000. Like, I know that seems like a lot. And a lot of the professional fundraisers that I was talking to would look to me and say, I do that like in a week. And I just felt like no one can understand my struggle of trying to raise that much money, what to me seems like a lot of money, with the folks that I was talking to. And so I show these examples to you just to show you that the fundraising experience I have, other than the dog park, is on a much smaller scale. It's a single project. We're not necessarily talking about an operating revenue of $5 million. How do you do that for your neighborhood? So these are my 3 largest projects that I've worked with at a neighborhood level. So the first one you see is the playground. That's Bauman Park in Bates Hendricks. The playground itself is brand new, but the park has been there for a long time. It was another community project. They brought in a wooden playground set for this area. And after 10 years, as you'd imagine, it's wood, it fell apart. So in 2019, in about 2 weeks, we raised around $20,000 through community partnerships to install the playground, and one that actually is going to survive a little bit longer, do the mulch, do some landscaping there as well. By far the largest project I've done, and I would say is a huge outlier, is the middle one you'll see here, which is Indy Dog Park. That was done in the middle of COVID, which I didn't think we would ever be able to achieve. We had scheduled everything out pre-COVID, and then we're set to launch our fundraising campaign in the middle of COVID. So we said, we just got to do it. And luckily people were bored at home with all of their dogs and said, I need a place to take my dog. I will donate to you. So we raised about $90,000 in our 45-day campaign there to build that. Again, bigger endeavor because turf is expensive and so is concrete if you're doing that kind of work. So that was a lot of our investment there. And then the last project I did over here on the right through Fletcher is the activation of the Fountain Square Plaza. So if you're familiar, this area is just ripe with potential, but it was missing a lot of key elements for activation. So there were not permanent or even options for tables and chairs. We didn't have any other placemaking activities, but more importantly, we did not have any budget to pay the artists that were using the plaza to provide this public programming. So we launched again a crowdfunding campaign within the community to raise about $40,000 in 10, 12 days through our partnerships to be able to purchase some permanent equipment, but then also create a fund to be able to pay our artists. So this is what the grant that we're currently working off of right now here in Fountain Fletcher to do our programming this summer. So again, all of these things, I have not done a fundraising project where we're raising in the millions of dollars or anything like that. These are all site-specific projects that I think were achievable because we had these wonderful community partnerships beforehand that allowed us, when we needed to make an ask, folks were pretty quick to sign up and help us financially. So you've heard me say partnerships a few times versus sponsorship. So we internally have been trying to change our language there in the Fountain Fletcher District. And I would encourage you guys to do this too, because I think sponsorships in a lot of ways provide a different connotation for what that relationship looks like than if you're thinking of things as a partnership. So why would we want to think of these things as partnerships? So one, businesses and individuals are constantly asked for donations and sponsorships from organizations of all sorts of types. Neighborhood associations, one-offs that just literally are cold calling people from a list and asking for beer donations or, monetary, or can we use your space for free? So as soon as you have a business, and if any of you guys are business owners here, you're frequently asked for some sort of your time, talent, or treasure for free. And so depending on the organization, you might think a $50 donation is a pretty low monetary value, but for some folks, if you're the 10th $50 ask they've gotten today, you're probably either not going to get a response or maybe it's a one and done, which from a neighborhood perspective, we really want these to be engaged relationships to move forward, because even if you build a park, you're going to have to maintain it. You want these people to be engaged with you long term. So partnerships would indicate a longer term collaborative effort to meet your common goals. Again, coming from that neighborhood perspective, we know that there isn't just one issue that either we need to immediately improve. There's always something that needs to get better, and we're always working to make our neighborhoods better, safer, cleaner. So rather than just asking for a sponsorship for one event, one project, these partnerships say we're going to work together in this collaborative effort long term. Partnerships can also better align with the business or an organization's mission than just a one and done sponsorship. So some folks are really easy to write you a check and then they move on, but some people want this to be more of a collaborative relationship. And so if we outline things as the expectation of a partnership, we're setting the ground for that long term. This as a partnership also can include some donations that are outside of simply financial support that can help you meet that common goal, including time, talent as well. So if you're familiar with the nonprofit world, a lot of the times we say, if you serve on a board or engage, usually we say there's three things that you can offer, right? You can offer your time, you can offer your talent, you can offer your treasure. And so what I've learned through my journey in the nonprofit world is initially to my brain, it was we need money to do projects. But what I've come to learn is that folks' time in volunteering and their talent is just as important as someone writing you a check. So you might have someone that says, hey, my organization really financially isn't in a point right now that we can write you a check or that we can support you. But I know that you're building a park. Do you need a skid steer to be able to move mulch? That does save you money and frees out some of your time, but maybe it's not a bottom line check. So I think, again, partnerships moving forward are kind of the way to frame helping you meet those goals in the end. So looking at this, I like to think of these things in a timeline. So we're working here with the assumption that you guys have already done all of INRC's wonderful trainings in terms of asset-based community development. You're looking at, when you've come to this project, you've done a lot of things before you got to this point, right? So if you are in the beginning stages of planning your project and you don't have a budget and you're not really fleshed out on what you're doing or why you're doing it, I would say at this point, you're not quite ready to start thinking about the fundraising part of it yet. Here, we're making the assumption that you have a budget, you know how much you need to raise, you have the capacity to actually see the project through. And then also, you know that this is something that you can do. And once you get to those points, then I think you're ready to start that fundraising conversation. So this is my suggestion and experience in doing other projects. This isn't necessarily a science. There isn't, this isn't maybe like industry best practice. But these are just some lessons that I've learned through my time doing some fundraising and community building. So I would say my suggestion would be, as you're looking through a project, start building those relationships 6 months out before you're going to actually make the ask for a donation. So at that 6-month mark, so we're going to break down each one of these pieces in the timeline from here on out in our conversation. So we're going to start by 6 months out, just building a rapport with these people that we want to have partnerships with. They're not making an ask at the end of this conversation. We're just trying to build that relationship, make sure that they know who you are and you know who they are. And then about a month out, we're going to do a little bit more formal organizing in terms of your specific project. So we're going to talk about maybe some physical assets you want in hand to be able to be organized, to then when it is go time to make the actual ask, you have all of your ducks in a row and are ready to be the most prepared you can to get that contribution from a partner. And then the rest of this, sometimes we forget. We got their money, we did the park, hands clean, we're good. In this partnership idea, we're going to keep this going. So doing another check-in about a month after you complete your project to make sure that you're recognizing the partners that were integral in making this project happen, and checking in to make sure if that they have any concerns, but also just keeping them engaged at this point. And then from 6 months further, you're going to go back to almost that rapport building stage that we're going to talk about and really plug back in with these partners to keep this relationship going, because we don't want this to just be a one-time ask. We want this relationship to continue, because more than likely, to be frank, we're all going to have other asks of these partners in the future, but it's also going to be reciprocal, right? I'm going to probably need something as a neighborhood from one of my partners, but my partners eventually will need something back from me, right? Contact with residents, assistance with some city stuff, a letter of support. So we want this relationship to continue for future projects and future goals as well. So 6 months out, we're going to start by building rapport. So I think a great example of why we want to do this ties back into our Girl Scout cookies sales, which I think just ended. I think this is a wonderful example. So here on the left, you have a picture I just pulled from Google of, and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts do this, so I don't want to throw Girl Scout cookies under the bus. The popcorn is just the same way, that when you start going to stores and it's cookie season, that you're going to see these wonderful young ladies popping up places. And as you're going grocery shopping, you're walking around, you're going to see them trying to sell you cookies. Now, the cookies they're selling you, everyone sells the same cookies. And if you're like me, you eventually hit a point where you're like, I can't have 100 boxes of Girl Scout cookies in my house. It's not healthy for me. So I'm going to have to make a decision on whose cookies do I buy. And in my head, you're going to say, why would I buy from one person and not the other? Why do I say not today to this person, but yes to this person? So in this example, you might have different reasons why, but for me personally, I'm probably going to say no to the troop that's set out outside of a Walmart or a grocery store. But my friend's daughter who's selling the cookies and asked me personally, and I have a relationship with them, I'm more than likely going to buy the cookies from her because it's a personal ask. I have rapport with this person and I have that personal connection. So as we're thinking about the same thing in making these relationships within our community, we are way more likely to say yes for any sort of time donation or cost donation because I know you personally. And that relationship doesn't come from the 30 seconds when they see you walk by the door on your way to go grocery shopping. It's because you've known this person for a while, you've been engaged with them, you're more likely going to say yes to them. So keep this in mind as why we're looking at that longer term relationship versus that I need an ask and I need money within the month. So let's start with that 6 month period. So in your 6-ish months before you're making your ask, you're going to use that asset-based community building. So you're going to go through within your community boundaries, for example, or your project area, And you're going to start making a list. So you're going to say what organizations exist within my boundaries, what businesses, and maybe what significant people exist within my community. And we're going to start making a list with contact information. That's going to help you know who are these key players who I need to have a partnership with that will eventually turn into some sort of partnership down the road. That's not to say, in an area like ours where we represent we're mostly a business association. So a lot of our members are businesses. We do the same thing. We keep a list of all of our members, what organizations they're with, a good contact, because believe it or not, I do this same thing. Even though our members are already bought into our mission, I still have to rebuild that rapport and relationship before we make a financial ask for some sort of fundraising campaign. So again, we're going to start building these relationships about 6 months or more out before you're going to make that actual ask. When you do that, you're going to meet with them in some way. Either that's a quick you run by their establishment, you send an email, you make an introduction, you say, hey, I'd love to grab coffee, swing by your establishment, say hello, some sort of an interaction with them. And what you want to do in these meetings is you want to learn their why. So you want to learn why do they care about their community or in this area in general where they're at. So, why does this business, in my example, why does this business on Virginia Avenue care about Fountain Square? What is their value that they see here? So for some of them, it might be, hey, we love being here because we love the history. That's their why. So we'll talk a little bit next about why is that important to know what their why and their connection to your community is. So in that 6-month period, again, we're going to start, how can we work on that relationship that we're building now? So is there anything that we can work on together in the moment? So from a neighborhood perspective, one of those things might be those orange signs we see for variances. Maybe a business needs some sort of a variance or something through the city. Can you help them by writing a support letter if you're in support of what they do? Or if a new business opens in your community, can you go meet with the owner and say, hey, we'll make a Facebook post, we'll send flyers, I'll tell 10 people about your business. That's building that relationship now, again, establishing that rapport. Are they running into any issues that you're able to help with? So, you might think, oh gosh, as a neighborhood association person, like, what do I know that a business owner wouldn't? You would be surprised the number of our business owners and organizations that don't know about the Mayor's Action Center. Even something as simple as that. Hey, I'm having trouble with like a sidewalk issue or a pothole or my trash getting picked up or any of these things, right? As a neighborhood person, you probably have some resources available that you can offer to them just casually in a conversation. So once you meet, you're going to start creating a mailing list to stay in touch. If your organization doesn't already have some sort of a mailing list, this is good for you to have anyway, to send meeting reminders, updates about things, a new business opening. That's a wonderful thing to put in a newsletter, or just a one-off email about something. So once you meet with them, have that conversation, just ask and say, hey, we're building an email list. Can I keep you on our email list to stay updated on what each other is doing? And most of the time, people are pretty fine with that. If you already have a relationship with some of those partners that are on your list, my suggestion would be just to check back in with them. Have they attended one of your meetings recently? So if you're a neighborhood organization that has regular meetings or regular meetups, send an email to invite them back to that. Hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. Just want to let you know we have a monthly meeting this Tuesday. I would love to see you. If not, is there a good time for me to pop by and chat? And again, just do some check-ins for those folks that you want to start to build that partnership with. Again, thinking again, who are we going to make that ask of? We're going to start that now. So some recommended things during this time that I would have, and we're going to show some examples of this in the next slide. I would, when you come to those meetings, bring materials to leave with them. Sometimes it takes seeing the flyer a couple days later, or sometimes people are so engaged in a conversation that they need a little bit more time to digest what you leave them. So it's always good to have a little bit of a permanent product. So when you leave, they have something to remember what you guys talked about. So this can be a business card. Again, super low cost. You can print them at home, even if you're not, if you guys, I know some of our groups are limited budgets. So a business card, a flyer, even about what is my neighborhood association? What are our boundaries? What do we do? Or maybe it's an invitation to a future meeting. Hey, we're having our annual meeting. We'd love to have you come. We meet every first Monday. The goal during this time is to make sure these groups are familiar with your organization's mission and work, and you know how these groups are connected to your community. So we want to make sure they understand both ways, because a lot of the times our businesses, not all the time, but they might not be connected with the actual neighborhood association that's there, or your organization that's working and doing great work, because they're busy running their business. So good just to make sure that they know who you are, you know exactly their why and how they're connected, and doing that during that 6-month period of time. So another thing during this time that I recommend that our fundraising and partnerships folks do is literally you go through your personal Rolodex. You may laugh, but I'm sharing my age. I'm not that old, but I do physically have a Rolodex that I keep of everyone's business cards, because it's helpful to go back. I might meet somebody and then a couple years later need to reestablish that communication with them. And having a physical card for me is a lot easier than trying to scroll through my email or my phone. So I have your physical things. So usually when we start this beginning stages of partnership, your team of people, if that's your neighborhood board, whoever that is, I recommend they go through their Rolodex of people, people that they know. And literally when we've done this with other organizations, we get out our phone and we talk about the people you've texted recently, because those are your closest contacts if you've texted them in the last month. And you put your information on your potential partnership list. And you might think, okay, what does my cousin in Iowa have anything to do with my project? They're connected to you. So they care about the work that you're doing as a friend, as a family member, and they're still likely to throw some cash your way, to support you as a person, even if they're not directly connected to your community. So we go through there, we add their contact information. We check in and say, hey, I'd be willing to talk to, my cousin about potentially giving us $50 for our park. And we put them and we include them in there. When we get a little bit farther in the stages, what we end up doing, and you'll see an example of this in a spreadsheet, is I tell people to go through and assign those folks a value, which might seem kind of icky, but this helps with our number at the end to figure out how much we're going to raise. Another thing too is to think of the business and community connections that you already have. So maybe it's, hey, my friend works at Salesforce, and maybe Salesforce could be a community partner for us in our project. Put that friend down, because it's a good idea to say, hey, do you know who at Salesforce we could contact about a grant, about a donation? That is going to be easier than just going on the Salesforce website and trying to dig and find someone, because you probably won't. And two, remember, going back to that Girl Scouts, that personal ask is always going to be better than just a cold call or a random email or a letter they get in the mail. So going through your personal Rolodex, not a bad idea. So like we had mentioned before, we want to think about what these organizations, what their why is. Why are they plugged into us? Why would they want to be engaged with us? And what do they find value in the community? So these are some examples. So on the left is their why. On the right is what we as an organization would want to have our messaging reflect to help plug in with them. So maybe the business or organization's mission directly aligns with your project goals. So maybe it's a mom and pop business. Let's say it's a pizza place, and they say, we care about this community. We agree that a new park is so important. Those are your easy asks, because those people are already on board. So then your messaging to that person and the information you want to relay back to them is to highlight these common goals in a very clearly follow-up conversation, email, mailer of some sort, because you already know their why, and you're highlighting to them, yes, you agree with us, and here's why we should partner. So again, perfect case scenario, you talk with them and they say, yes, I love this idea. How can we support you? But I will tell you, that's not going to be everybody you talk to. So maybe they are, in your conversations, you learned that this group, maybe it's a new business, it's a bank. That's the one we talk to a lot, that they're wanting to establish their footprint in our area, but maybe they don't have a physical location, but they want to support what we're doing here. then I would adjust my messaging and conversations with them to highlight how this partnership will directly benefit their outreach. So, for example, hey, that was such a great conversation we had a couple weeks ago. I want to talk to you more about ways that we can partner to make sure our residents know about the benefits of banking with you. And starting again that partnership where you're getting a benefit of hopefully a partner down the road, but they're also getting some of that face-to-face contact with the residents and people in your organization. So maybe they're a longstanding business in the community and they just frankly love the area. So you could tailor your messaging to highlight ways that this will continue to show the community their commitment to the area. So they're not new, they've been here for forever, but you would want to say, this business supports Fountain Square. They've been here. A great example for that is Arthur's Music in our neighborhood. They have been here for ages. And anytime that they sign on to be a partner with us, it's just another opportunity for us to show they're still here, they're great, and they've supported this neighborhood for forever. And then again, this happens sometimes. You meet with somebody and they're disengaged and they're like, oh, this neighborhood's the worst. It's going down the toilet. Or they're frustrated with something in your neighborhood. That's okay. Not everybody has to be happy. And that's a hard thing for me to deal with sometimes. But if your project can address one of their concerns or your organization can, then make sure we're highlighting that. Oh, there's so much trash all over my neighborhood. It's so dirty. It just makes me so mad every day when I come to work because my business is dirty. Then you might use that opportunity. Hey, did you know that this park will have new trash cans? And actually, we're going to get new trash service. So again, we're talking connecting directly to their why and why they're here and why they should care about your project. And keeping that in mind as we're looking through how we actually make the ask and engage with them. So again, same in that 6-month period of time, we're going to start, if you don't already have it, this would be a great time to invest a little bit of your time. And maybe in these conversations, you'll find if you're not a graphic designer or you don't have someone within your wheelhouse that does that, this might be a good time to create some documentation for your organization in terms of who you are and what you do. So here's just some examples tied to the other projects that we've done. So the first one, this was our first draft for the dog park in terms of who we are, basic information. You'll see sponsorship logos on there. We already had some people on board. Those were our top donors that we had before we even launched the campaign. So we gave them some additional publicity and press with these. But we just had this. So when we went to go meet with people, because we were doing crowdfunding, so we were looking for smaller donations, more of them. We took this out to go to people. So people could find us. They learned about our mission. They learned where we were, what we did. And it gave them some permanent products. And when they went home, they could be like, oh yeah, we need to check out this dog park thing. So that was helpful. What you'll see all the way on the right is our Fountain Fletcher, kind of looks like in real life, a bookmark that we hand out when we meet with new businesses. And again, this is all on that rapport building stage. So you won't see anything in here on this that's directly tied to a fundraising target. So here just says, here's Fountain Fletcher. This is what we do. We have information about joining as members, but it's not necessarily something that, like, when I meet with people, my ask isn't to become members, right? Give them this information, links them to all of our social media, our website, my contact information, all of that. Another thing that I like to leave with our folks is our annual report. So again, ours is pretty detailed because we have some charitable expectations as a C3. But as a neighborhood association, you could make this a one-pager really easy of what did we do in 2023 and what are we planning to do in 2024. And that's a really great way to help center your messaging to that person and that organization you're meeting with, so they see, oh, yeah, I love that. You're working on building community and relationships. I want to be part of that. So again, you're just fostering that partnership. Or they look on that and they say, oh, you guys are doing cleanups. I need help with cleanups. I would love to be a part of what you're doing. Yeah, just examples again. You might also find in your conversations that somebody is willing to donate their time to help you make one of these assets. I will tell you, I've made all of these and I am not a graphic designer. We'll talk about some tools at the very end to help you make some of these things. I am not at all, this is not my wheelhouse. And there's some tools that can help you make some pretty sharp looking things, pretty low cost. All right, you've got your Rolodex, you know your partners, you're trying to figure out what do we need to do to actually make this actual ask. So begin your organization and planning before you start making asks, so you're prepared once fundraising starts. The last thing you want to do when you're doing your fundraising is have to take a step back and, oh, we never talked about this, or we didn't consider this angle of things. So you really want to make sure all of your stuff related to that project is organized, ready to go. So my recommended assets when you're in this organization period are, what are your partnership packages to folks? We'll look at some examples on the next page. Specific flyers for a campaign, so for your fundraising campaign. And there's a lot, we could spend a whole other time on how do you fundraise, how do you shape a fundraising campaign, in terms of, do you do with one big gala with a single event to raise your money? Are you doing crowdfunding where you are just trying to get as many donations as you can? Whatever your target of how you're going to raise your money, making sure you have some sort of information about your project and how people can donate ready to go on day one. So as you're thinking through these, how are you recognizing your donors and your partnership? So if people are being asked for money, they are going to say, okay, what do I get in exchange for it? If you're doing a donation, a lot of the times people are not expecting a 1-for-1. So they're not saying, if I give you $500, I'm expecting a $500 value back, because there is an expectation that this is being used in the community. So don't feel like if you're doing these donor packages, like, oh my gosh, if I'm only giving you, a koozie for your donation or a t-shirt, but you gave me $500. A lot of the times people know that your $500 donation is not going to get you $500 directly in value back, and that's okay. There's lots of different ways that you can recognize donors. We'll talk through a couple that I've used on the next couple slides, so you can get some ideas, but there's lots of wonderful ways to do those that are usually site and project specific. So our tools that we're going to talk through for this piece, and you guys will get a copy of these, are the donor tracking spreadsheets. So anytime we do anything in Fountain Fletcher, or any project I do that is tied to sponsorships, partnerships, donations, I immediately start one of these new tracking spreadsheets on day one, because the last thing I want to do is have someone give me money or something, an in-kind donation, and forget and not recognize them for their partnership, for their time in this project. So I start those on day one, and that is what I focus primarily on as we're tracking those things. So we'll see an example of this next. So basically what this donor sheet is going to do, like I said before, you're going to assign a value to their donation. So I'm going to ask this person for, I'm going to show them everything, but I'm going to hopefully get them at this level. And then you also want to be assigning someone in charge of that contact. So again, personal asks are better. Who is the closest in their circle to be able to ask them for that money? And if nobody is, then it's just the bravest person most of the time. And then another thing you want to think about in this is, how can people see your progress? A lot of people want to see that their contribution got you this much closer to reaching your goal. So some logistical things, how are you taking donations? You want to make sure you think through that. So are you using a website to take donations where you don't even have to touch checks and cash? Are you using, if you are taking checks and cash, how are you showing people your progress of where you're at? There are lots of really wonderful websites in this day and age that will help you, so you do not have to keep track of donations on paper, or only handle checks for people that want to pay that way. So my suggestion would be tap into one of these websites that does some crowdfunding if you're using that route, so you're not trying to sort through, hopefully a lot of donations. And also you can keep track of in-kind donations on these websites too. So it's a great opportunity. I would highly recommend using one of these donation websites versus on your own. So let's dig in and look at what some of these examples might be. This is actually our Art Squared in Fountain Fletcher is our signature event. So it is our largest fundraiser for our organization. It is not necessarily a project specific fundraiser. So this fundraiser gives us our operating revenue. So we do look for presenting partnerships. Now, what you'll see here is some of the language here is getting adjusted: partnership versus a sponsor. Because again, we want to help these people realize, and whoever partners with us, that this isn't something that we're looking for them to just sponsor this one day of activity. We want them to engage with us year round. And that we offer benefits outside of just a financial contribution to Art Squared. So as you can see here, this is a double-sided page. So we have it where we will print it, but we'll also email it, post a conversation. So it'll give you a little bit about the event. But then it also says, as a charitable organization, our programming depends on the donations from organizations like you. So again, we're giving that call to action. We need you to support us and be in this partnership because we do important work. Here in the yellow is all of our important work that we do that you're going to support. And then on the back page, it clearly outlines the different options for partnerships and what that looks like. So if you're a presenting sponsor, we're just going to flat out tell you how much the money is and then what you get. So where we're going to see your logo, you get a booth. So we're going to spell all of those pieces out. What we have here is we have a lot of different entry levels. So we don't want to give this to our small businesses and say the only way you can be engaged in Art Squared is with a $5,000 donation. We're going to rule out a lot of people pretty quickly that way. So we have a high level donor, which if you look at the back end of what our fundraising looks like, we don't base our fundraising off of the assumption that we're going to get a $5,000 donor. We know that if we get one, wonderful, we're raising more money. But if not, really our bread and butter is that $500 donor and that $1,000 donor. So we're really looking to build out lots of people who donate there and have a lot of engagement and partnership versus just one really big partner in what we're doing. So again, then at the bottom, way to contact us, ways to learn more about the event, see what we've done in the past. So if you're looking to do an event that's ongoing and is raising money, this might be a great example. But this maybe won't work if you're doing a single crowdfunding campaign that's tied to a project. So here's two other examples that we've done for crowdfunding for a specific project. So as you'll see, not a designer, but my things tend to have pretty common themes in how they look. So on the left here, dog park partnership opportunities. So here, again, we were looking for larger donors for this one. So in this case, we were really putting our leaning heavily on those $5,000 donors. And then some of the recognition that we gave them. So if you've ever been to our dog park, you'll see we are at year 4 now. So these large banners have survived longer than we thought they would. In recognition for the donation, we put these huge vinyl banners along the fencing. So when people came to the park, they saw them all the time. So we're trying to hope that we can show like they care about the dog community and your pets while you're there. Their logo was included on all of the promotional materials during fundraising, and we secured those people first. So they got a lot of recognition throughout the time. We had an entrance sign that just recognized all of our donors above the $500 level, I want to say, for the park. And they were on a permanent sign that's at the park. So it's still there for people to see their name. We did some social media recognition for them. You'll see that there. And then what we offered from a long-term perspective is that we offered memberships if people donated. So we did do a little bit of a 1-for-1 with the dog park, but we thought, again, we want the park to be busy, so we want you guys to come. Some other pieces that we've done. So placemaking in the plaza was the grant that we're currently working off of. So in this case, is a great example. We did not get a title sponsor for this. And again, we weren't really relying on that $5,000. It would have been cool if we got it, but it wasn't the end of the world that we didn't. But that person, whoever signs on at that level, was going to get a title sponsorship and naming rights to the plaza that summer. So they were going to have some big banners up on the plaza so people could see it. But they also, like I said, we didn't end up getting somebody, so that was okay, but we really did at the $25,000 and $1,000 level. And then under that, we also sold, and you'll see some pictures of it too, naming rights for tables and chairs. So again, we got lots of folks who went in at that $100 and $300 level because they wanted to have their name when they sat at the plaza and sit in their chair. So it was a really cool kind of add-on as we went through. But yeah, promotional opportunities for these folks, social media recognition is a big one. And in both of these campaigns, we did have a match. So we'll talk about that at the end. So a lot of people were motivated to donate because a really quick selling point was, hey, your $1,000 becomes $2,000 very quickly. So these are things that I had prepped before I started to make the ask. So I had target levels. Now, if somebody came to me and said, hey, I don't really, so look at the dog park. I can't give 5,000, but I want to give more than 1,000. Can I give you 2,500? I wasn't going to turn their donation away. I said, yep, what can we do to make this worth it? And I use that example because we did get a lot of people who said, I want to give more. And what we ended up doing is we put plaques on the benches, which we didn't even think to have options for that. But at 2,500, we had a couple people that bought in and put their logos, and we had some families who did some memorial signs for their pets at the park. And those went in there at that $2,500 level. So some things did pop up that we didn't anticipate through the course of making some asks and doing our crowdfunding too. So here's an example of what the donor tracking sheet is. And again, you're going to get this as a copy as an Excel spreadsheet as we go through. So on here, you're going to see your name of the donor, who the responsible partner is. So is that me asking for money? Who is it that's going to be responsible for that? And then what type of sponsor are they? And then what your target ask is. So what that's going to help me is that if every single person says yes, you'll see at the bottom in this example, I would raise $9,550. So that keeps me, if my goal is to raise $10,000, cool, just off of these asks. If everyone says yes, I'm pretty close. But then to the next amount where it says donation amount, that's where you're actually going to write in what they said. So I asked Bobacon and Coffee for $1,000. They said, not this year, but I can do 500. Love it. We're going to put 500 in there. And then in the notes section over here, you're going to see what is their why as it relates to your project. So it just kind of keeps it in your mind. So for example, Tuggles and Dugout, they were previous donors for us. So we were happy to ask them again and remind them of their contribution in the past and how that impacted us. We'd love to have your partnership again this year. And I will say before anyone panics, these are absolutely made up numbers. They are not what we actually ask the people for. So if you're going, ooh, Conti, I can go ask them for $1,000 and they'll do it. Just a heads up, these are all made up numbers. All right, it is go time. So now we are ready to actually launch our fundraising and begin to do that. We're going to go make the ask. My biggest advice is to not be scared. I work with a lot of people and talk to a lot of people who are really scared to make the actual ask about money. And I understand you don't know, we don't talk about money a lot. I don't know what a business's financial situation is to know if a $5,000 ask is offensive to them in a good or bad way. That might be like, you think I only could give you 5,000, or they might say, you think I have 5,000 extra to spend. So don't be scared, because at the end of the day, the worst that they're going to say is no, because in this idea of a partnership, this is one period in time. And if they say no, that's okay. We say, I totally understand. I would love to keep this partnership going. I hope there's other ways that we can engage. So my suggestion, if you're really nervous, is that this is your first time in making it, any sort of financial ask like this, practice with a yes. So this is where you're going to go to your for sure people who you know are going to give you money, practice your elevator pitch, and get the yes. So you can work out the bugs and say, oh, I didn't like how I said that, or actually that didn't make sense, or, the more we talked about it, I actually need this on my flyer, on this information, because these people asked about it. So practice with a yes, get a couple donations under your belt so you feel good that you're ready to go before maybe you start making those more difficult ones. When you make the ask, be prepared to offer multiple ways to partner. So again, we're going to go back to that time, talent, and treasure. So maybe you meet with a marketing firm that works in your that works in your boundaries, and they say, we're just starting. It's a tough time of the year for us. I can't really give you money. You might say, hey, is there any way you would be willing to make us a logo for this campaign? Or would you design the sign that's going to go at the park? And that might be an easier thing for them to do than it is to actually write you a check. Or also time. Hey, I totally understand. Any chance you would be willing to, volunteer at one of our events? I'll send you the information after this conversation about how you can volunteer your time to help us with the park day or whatever you're fundraising, however you can get them to plug in as volunteers. So again, we're thinking about these as partnerships, not just dollars and cents, although I realize that a lot of the time we need dollars and cents to make our projects work. If you have a team of people that are helping you with making these asks, which I hope you do, I've done a lot of these on my own, but it's definitely easier if you have kind of a sphere of influence of people. Another thing to do is to create what we say is copy, so other people can easily make the ask. So maybe you sit down and you type a form email that just really gets your messaging clean that you like, and you say, hey guys, plug and chug this information as you see fit, but this has a copy of the documents to share the links they need. And then what I always offer when I do this is that I say, make the introduction. So, hey, my friend that works at Lilly, Salesforce, Cummins, whatever, that you're saying, that's a big ask. Can you make an introduction? By the way, I've copied Laura. She's our executive director. She would be happy to chat with you more, and pass that contact on. That makes it a lot easier if you have somebody who's like, oh, I don't really want to do all of the work. I'll make an introduction for you. No problem. Give them some sample email verbiage, send them on their way. Again, remember, a personal ask is always going to be more successful than a cold call. Picking up a phone and just going through random businesses that you've seen a flyer for, or you've seen their billboard, that's a harder piece to do, especially if you don't have a relationship with them built before. So again, and a great example of that is we have some billboards along Virginia Avenue that folks like to put their signage up for. That's my buy-in. If I see, for example, like Hope Plumbing or Peterson Brothers Air Conditioning usually puts some advertising up in my area, I'll just say, hey, I just want to let you know, I saw your guys' new billboard in the area. I just wanted to reach out to see if there's any time we could chat about a partnership. And I do that way before I make this ask. And then that way, if they don't answer, then I don't even make my effort to call them to make the ask, because they didn't want to partner with me when there was no money involved. I don't know that they will when I make the ask. And again, as you're having these conversations and making the ask, I recommend it to be in person, but don't expect them to say yes on the spot. I'm going to leave the information with you. I'm so happy we had a time to chat about it today and answer any of your questions. Take some time, think about it, get back with me. But when you're doing those, tie the ask back to their why. Again, tailor some of that messaging back to why they should care about your campaign and your community goals, and how their support, time, talent, or treasure helps you meet those goals. Let's say you've met with everybody on your list and you're like, okay, we've only raised $1,000 of our $10,000. We're never going to build what we need to build. After you do these initial meetings, follow up in a couple weeks if you haven't heard back, with a personal ask, like a phone call. So maybe you just call and say, hey, wanted to make sure you got the email or the documents I left with you, and see if there's any questions I can answer as you're making your decision. And they might say, again, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, not a good time. And that's okay. Because again, we're looking at this as a snapshot in time of a partnership. There might be other ways where maybe they come back in the future as you're closer to your goal and say, we'll finish out your $500 for you, or I just had to ask someone different, or maybe they just forgot, and your nice little nudge helps them along the way. So after you make the ask, now we get to celebrate. So you did it, you met your goal, everyone was involved. Now we get to start to recognize people for their partnerships. So start with your partnership recognition as promised in your campaign. So the rest of your checklist, that spreadsheet that was on the other slide, what it shows you at the other two tabs on the side, say, what is their donor recognition? So what did you say they were going to get? And then there's another box to say, I did it. So, did I say I was going to put them on a sign? Yes, I made sure that their name was on the sign. So we're going to start doing that in that month after you reach your goal. Again, just as organized as you can. The last thing you want to do, and I will say I have done it, is left someone off of our list of some sort of recognition that I said was going to get it, and it's a horrible feeling. So the more you can do to put that on your checklist, the better. If you're still completing your project with more than likely a month after you raise your funds, you're still going to be, and that's great because you can keep these partners engaged with updates on the project during your significant milestones. So this helps them to see that you, one, are able to complete the project that they pledged their money to, but two, it continues to help them see the value of your partnership. So, hey, so for example, the dog park, as we were building this, we had a lot of different contractors that were coming in and out because before the dog park was here, it was just a vacant plot of land. So we had to do some drainage work, concrete, all sorts of different things. So every single time that we had a new contractor come in to do work during that construction phase, I would go out and I would take a picture and say, hey, thanks to Mattingly Concrete, and they're getting a free plug here. Thank you for your concrete. Look how great the concrete works. We can't wait. We're one step closer to the dog park opening. Tag them in what they're doing, show their great work. But then it kept them plugged into us too, to see that value in what we're doing. Again, continued engagement is key to the partnership. It's not meant to be a one and done. So if you're in a construction phase, again, do that. If you met your fundraising goal and you're doing more of just like an operational piece, then just continue to tag them in things as you're going through. Send them a thank you. Hey, by the way, we were finally able to buy, new shovels for our community garden. That was because of your donation. Thank you so much. Here's a picture of us using the new shovels. Those are great ways to keep that engagement going. And again, just a little plug of our ribbon cutting for the dog park. Again, just a fun time of helping us recognize some of those donors too. Some other things that we've done in terms of donor recognition that you'll see here. So this one from the dog park is all of our major donors. So top partners received a designated and post through our social media. They got a lot of shout outs for their partnership. So again, this is Pet Sweets was one of our larger donors. So we did a lot of social media promotion for them. And then on the right here, you'll see this is the plaza. So again, this is our grant that we're currently working off of. People had the opportunity to buy tables, like I mentioned. So we put these little stickers with our branding on it, but then whatever text that they wanted. And so they get to come back out and see these. So it was really cool for our folks that had businesses. We could snag pictures like this, take a picture and say, look what your donation did. So this was a live music night. So not only were they paying for the tables and chairs, but they paid for the band to be there, the sound equipment. So we just got to do regular check-in and say, this is what you're actually doing, what your funds actually went to, which I think is cool to be able to see what your money's doing. And so 6 months post, either finishing your fundraising goal or 6 months completion of your project, you want to keep that relationship going and maybe pivot away a little bit from this project specific piece and then back to that just keeping rapport building. So keep engaging. This is the start of something great. You got somebody to buy into your project. We want to keep them going. So this picture over here, like I said, is one of our salon owners sitting in the chair that she bought for her company. So I thought that was a fantastic piece. She comes to the plaza, engages with us, shares a lot of our material. So we have this back and forth. We promote her salon, but then she promotes our events on the plaza too. So it's really cool. Neighborhoods are always, you guys know this, are always going to have needs as a volunteer organization. We can help build these partnerships for long-term collaboration. So if that's serving on a committee, being a board member, helping you redo your website, whatever that is, keeping these relationships and partnerships strong is going to benefit everybody. Another recommendation I have is to send your final report or outcomes to your partner. So if you're using any sort of grant or crowdfunding, they're going to request some sort of a final report. So is that, this is how I spent my money. We had goals. This is how we met them, whatever those are. My recommendation is you send those to your people that donated because they want to know too what they did and how their money was spent. So send your final report or outcomes to all those partners too. Again, 6 months later to get a little pop-up in my email that says, this is how we spent your money. Look how great it is. Like that just makes me feel good. But then I also am probably going to plug back in with your organization, go to your social media, go to your website. Hey, we should get coffee, right? I'm going to do something because it just pops back in my brain. As we mentioned, can you send random mentions of their collaboration? So if you are using social media, this would be a wonderful time, to post a picture like this and tag everybody in it. Hey, look, I'm just sitting here enjoying a drink from at Upland as a donor, sitting in my at Salon Honey chair. So how can we continue to build that relationship? So again, it just pops up and they go, oh, that was so cool. I did donate money to that. Just like when we're doing our rapport building on the front end of things, keep regular meetings if you can. Now, I understand that this is harder for groups that don't have staff, and I realize how lucky we are to have somebody full-time in our organization. But even just an email, if that's a newsletter, making sure all those partners are on it, that you're sending out about your neighborhood association, or reminders to attend your regular meetings. It doesn't have to be that you're spending a lot of your time going to coffee meetings when you're probably working full time already and you're doing this as a volunteer. Now, it might be beneficial for some of your larger partnerships to keep some regular check-ins, but again, what you have capacity and time for, what you can do is what you can do. And then how can you support this organization or business? So we talked a little bit about, if they need letters of support, if you're looking to host an event or purchase something, you're doing a neighborhood cookout and you're going to order pizza. Is it an option that you could actually order pizza from your neighborhood business versus going to a chain restaurant as an extra thank you, just to build that relationship? And again, continued thank you for what you're doing. If you're hosting a meeting or a dinner with neighbors, can you do that at their business versus going somewhere out of the district, out of your boundaries? So again, keeping those relationships going, even once your project, kind of wiped your hands, your park's built, it's there, wonderful. Continuing those relationships with the people that were dedicated to your cause. So that's our timeline. I wanted to talk just about a couple important resources, I think, and then I'll make sure we have time for questions too. I would look for ways that you can expand your financial contributions. My favorite way to do that, if you're not familiar with this, is the Creating Places grant through IHCDA. So it's a state-based grant that's managed through Patronosity. So it's this online platform that provides a one-to-one match for your donations. It also tracks your donations. It gives them a place to pay, so you're not taking the cash. Absolutely wonderful. The team at Patronosity also can coach you in creating your landing page and your fundraising and your donors. I've learned so much from them in the first project and two that I did. Absolutely wonderful people. So this is our Placemaking in the Plaza page. You can see, and if you just Google Placemaking in the Plaza, Patronosity, or Creating Places, all of these pages are still live. So you can see what they look like and what we did. So over here, you can see it says, if you give $100 or more, you're a neighborhood supporter, and here's what you get. But it also shows at the top what our fundraising goal was and how many people gave. So our initial goal for fundraising for Placemaking the Plaza was $17,500. We surpassed that at a little over 19,000 with our final donors. And you can see we had 187 total donors. So it gives you some cool outward facing things that you can see from people. So if somebody's kind of like lukewarm on donating, they can go to your page and see everything. But again, it also, in a lot of ways, cuts your fundraising in half. So we were able to raise and double our donations very quickly with these projects, which makes them a lot more achievable. So if you have not looked at a Creating Places grant, absolutely look at that to see if your project qualifies, if it's something you can do. It has been such a lifesaver for some of our bigger projects. Some other resources, if you are not familiar with Canva, it is a wonderfully, mostly free website and tool for graphic design. So it's what this PowerPoint is made on. It's almost every single piece of marketing material that I use is from Canva. You could use it for free, and you really can have a lot of tools for free. But there's also a paid version that you can have that gives you even more. If you are a nonprofit, a 501c3, you can apply for free access to the pro version. So if you aren't a C3, I would see if you can partner with a C3 to kind of share logins and access to it, because it is again, wonderful tool. There are templates already ready to go. So if you're like, man, I am not a visual design person, you literally can scroll through, find a template you like, change the text, change some pictures, whatever, click and drag, and it makes it for you. And you're like, oh man, this looks wonderful. Pretty user-friendly too. So if you don't use Canva, check it out. If you're not doing something that meets the eligibility for the Creating Places grant, another crowdfunding website that I like is called GiveButter. It's donation and crowdfunding with reasonable fees, and I don't think they have fees for a 501c3. But again, lets you visually track some things. How close are you to your goal? Who has donated? Does some tracking, processes your credit cards for you automatically. So it's another. There's lots of them. You can do it through PayPal and Venmo and all that. Have a piece of that too. But Give Butter, I've had good experiences with. This partnership tracking sheet, you guys will get a copy of that after the presentation today. But it just helps you, again, very simple, track your resources, track your donors, your partnerships, who said yes, who said no. So you aren't asking the same person 3 times. You already know that somebody talked to them. Just a nice little tool to have. And then maybe most importantly, stay in touch. Do you need a brainstorming partner? Is this the first time you've done a fundraising or any sort of partnership ask? Let's grab coffee. I'm happy to chat. I can't guarantee you that I'm going to be able to solve all your problems, but I am happy to help you in getting in the right direction and getting started. So that's my email and my cell phone. Again, more than happy to find some time to chat with you and figure out how we can support what you're doing. And this also, just to take this all for a circle, that picture on the side is Bauman Park. So it's the park I built as a married person with no kids. And the wonderful full circle moment of all of this was when my son was finally old enough and I could take him to the park that we had built in the community. He got to play on the playground that we did the big fundraising campaign for. So just another little bittersweet picture for me to remind me, like, okay, sometimes this work is hard, but there does become a value in kind of some of the difficult pieces as well. So, and then my plug, Fountain Fletcher District. We are in the heart of Fountain Square in Fletcher Place. We're on every social media. I'm not on every social media. I take that back. I'm not on TikTok. I will not be on TikTok. But connect with us, plug in with us, see what we do. If there's something that we're doing that you want more information of because you want to copy it in what you're doing in your neighborhood, again, I'm always happy to sit down and chat about what we do and how we can support other neighborhoods. Again, the pie doesn't get smaller. We're all better if we all have thriving, strong neighborhoods and districts. So hopefully I left enough time for questions. I don't know if we have any, but I'm happy to try to answer any that you have.
Laura, thank you. That was awesome. Great information. We have about 15 minutes for questions. So if you have a question, would you please take yourself off of mute and ask your question? Or if you don't want to ask your question and rather leave it in chat, you can do that as well. And we'll take questions for the next 15 minutes.
Hello, this is Joanne. I don't have a question, but this is a great presentation because I have suddenly had to take over the responsibilities of the president of We Care Association. And I was their quiet, stay in the background note taker and treasurer. So this has been quite a switch for me, and I needed a lot of information, and this has given me great information. And I've already started some of this, but I wasn't sure about it. So now I know that I was doing the right thing. I just have to get out there and start doing some more of it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's right. You need that validation to know. I know a lot of other people have been in my place. So what everybody else is doing, or am I totally out in left field? So absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions for Laura?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
I guess it's kind of two. The first one is, how is that resourcing spreadsheet going to be shared with us?
I think it may be left. Danae may put it in chat.
Okay.
Danae, is that what you're planning to do?
I can. We can also email out to everybody the spreadsheet. That might be a little bit easier.
Okay.
But I can also put it in the chat as well. Yeah.
And I guess the only other question I have is, have you guys had to handle with losing partners before, and how have you kind of navigated that? Because I'm sure sometimes people come and go, either both in level of dedication or just not being able to support you at all.
Yeah, I think continuing to make sure that folks know that, if their ability to give their money, again, talking about inflation in the economy, we work with a lot of restaurants. Those folks, their budgets are getting a little tighter with the cost of everything and inflation. Making sure that they know this, again, this isn't transactional. So maybe this is a little bit of a quiet time that we're going to engage, but then, we can still promote you and we can still engage and work with you. Maybe it's a little bit more one-sided for a period of time. But I will say on the flip side of that, I definitely also have been in the case where we've had people that they are choosing to not be engaging with us. And I would say my suggestion is you just don't take that personally. And if people are giving you some pretty clear signals that they don't want to be involved anymore, that's okay. You read that and you say, I understand, and we move on. And you're going to focus your efforts on those people that want to be engaged and are either already or, at least lukewarm to the idea, open to it. But yeah, definitely have been in those situations where those folks' engagement kind of go up and down. But again, thinking of that as like a long-term partnership helps you realize it's just that one blip in a timeline of a longer relationship.
Thank you for that question.
Mm-hmm.
Just allow for month. So back away, back away, back away.
And it looks like
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Hi, my name is Tiffany. I wanted to know if I was correct when you talked about the resource for creating places grants. So can you give me that again? Give us that again, what actual that resource is?
yeah, and I'll put it in the chat so you know what to search for.
Okay.
And it's creating places through IHCDA, which is a state program.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
See, I got the first part, but I didn't get the IDCH. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, for sure.
All right, any other questions?
And it looks like there was one in the chat. Someone was asking on the donor sheet, who is the responsible partner? So yes, so if you're using that donor tracking sheet, the responsible partner is who is kind of that point of contact for them. So again,
Gotcha.
preventing the same person from asking a business 3 times. That's who that responsible party is to make that initial ask and keep that relationship going.
Thank you, Laura. Okay.
Sure.
All right, any other questions out there? Laura, this was awesome. You were presenting more about what you all do of just in a neighborhood level, but I was wondering about using some of those techniques, and Danae, you may have thought about it as well, that we could use some of those techniques even for our agency fundraiser for Jubilee. So I thought a few little things that you shared, I thought, wow, we could try that for Jubilee to promote people who sponsor, donate, promote them all along instead of just putting them on the brochure at the event. So I thought that was really a really neat piece that we can definitely consider moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like there could be a whole other conversation on social media and the use of all of that for some great things too. So again, just a small snapshot into some things, but yeah, if you guys use social media, any of our neighborhood groups, there's a lot of power to that too.
Okay, great. All right, if there aren't any other questions out there, I'm not going to hold everyone up, but I definitely want to say thank you again, Laura, for accepting the invitation to come and share on our platform through the info session. And yeah, I just really value the information that you shared. And I think everyone else did that joined in. This recording will be on our YouTube webpage. So definitely, if you want to go back through and listen to it again, that will be an option for you. And I would also like to make you aware that we will have info sessions the third Tuesday of every month. And next month, we will be hosting the Damien Center. So if there are other agencies or other programs that you are interested in, would you please just shoot me an email and give me your suggestions, and I will follow up and see if we can get them on our platform and host those agencies. So if there's nothing else, again, Laura, thank you so much. And thank you everyone else for joining us this evening. And we will look forward to seeing you again for the info session in May. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Have a great evening. Thank you.